Today is December 4th of 2024. Hope everyone enjoyed the holidays. Been a couple of weeks since I've streamed live here on YouTube. Getting over a little bit of an illness here, but back with another video. And what I want to talk about today is yesterday's fascinating political situation out of the Korean Peninsula, as South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol briefly enacted martial law over the country, accusing the opposing Democratic Party of sympathizing with North Korea. So in this video, we will explore how this is a numeric riddle connected, first of all, to the Korean War, the famous conflict from the 50s that led to the split into the North and South Korea. Of course, they were already split prior to this war, but this gave us the 38th parallel, the demilitarized zone, and a whole bunch of other political drama. Also in this video, we're going to talk about why this story was published on December 4th, having begun on December 3rd, as this is a significant eclipse riddle. As with anything connected to the Korean Peninsula, as I've long documented on this channel, there's always riddles connected to the eclipse code. And I'm going to show you how this date, December 3rd, aligns perfectly with two very significant solar eclipses. You'll notice that the drama on December 3rd in South Korea started at 2227. And this is actually a number we're going to talk about, 227, because the first eclipse we'll measure to is the one that takes place in 2027 over the Middle East. However, the next total eclipse to pass over the Korean Peninsula happens in the year 2035, and the same alignment that we see to the 2027 eclipse also appears in the 2035 eclipse. Now, in one of our trusty methods of Gematria, the word eclipse sums to 314. Now, these here are the first three digits of pi. And on Pi Day next year, 2025, we'll have the first total lunar eclipse in about 2.5 years. So naturally, the pi riddle is at play for this story as well. So let's kick things off by talking about this date, the 3rd of December, which in Korea is written as 312, 3/12. And this is an interesting number to pop up because I've talked about this number being connected to Korea in the past. Notice how the Korean War lasted 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days. And in the language of Gematria, using a cipher called capitals mixed, which uses the alphabetic order but mixes capital and small letters together. Notice how Republic of Korea, the official name of South Korea, has Gematria of 312. Again, syncing up with the length of the Korean War. When you measure to next year's total lunar eclipse on March 14th, this political drama began a span of 3 months and 12 days before that eclipse. Something else that stood out about this measurement is that this is also 101 days. Again, measuring to the next total lunar eclipse. Well, 1:01 a.m. is when the vote was initially approved to end martial law. Now, they've since changed this to approximately 1 o'clock, but it certainly said 1:01 earlier. So again, this eclipse happens on Pi Day, and I thought it was interesting that one of the images circulating of Yoon at the stage yesterday was this interesting image of him standing in front of a bright light. And this is a clear nod to the eclipse code, as the moon moves in front of the sun during a solar eclipse. So once again, the phrase eclipse equals 314. And the man that Yoon Suk-yeol replaced as the president of South Korea is named Moon. Now, the name Moon is not terribly uncommon in South Korea, but it's only about 1 to 2% of the population has the name Moon. But throughout this video, you'll learn how this president, Moon Jae-in, is a very significant figure to the country, and he's also heavily connected to the original Apollo moon landing, as we'll discuss. Also consider how martial law was lifted in Korea on December 4th. The date written 12/4, whereas Moon Jae-in was born on January 24th, which is similarly written 1/24. This martial law declaration was made 314 days after Moon Jae-in's birthday, syncing up with the eclipse code. And if you rewind back to the Korean War, which started on June 25th of 1950, June 25th is 314 days after August 15th, which is the date that South Korea celebrates its independence each year. Now, the Korean War also began a total of 1,776 days after Korean independence. Now, that's another number connected to pi, because if you take the digits 314 and add every possible permutation of these three digits, you get a sum of 1776. To strengthen this connection in the language of Gematria, looking here at the base methods, the most simple ciphers, which use the standard alphabetic order and Pythagorean reduction methods, notice how the word pi sums to 16 and 11, while in ordinal, martial law equals 160 and 110. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the video, South Korea is a nation that truly embodies the eclipse code. First, consider how the word eclipse sums to both 33 and 137. Well, 137 is the 33rd prime number. In reverse, South Korea equals 137, just like total eclipse in ordinal. When President Yoon announced martial law, he did so on essentially state television. YTN Television is the name of the network. That network launched back in the year 1995, and look at how old YTN Television was on the date of this declaration. 10,870 days. With the zeros dropped, as we customarily do in numerology, this represents 187, like total eclipse, summing to 187 in reverse. And it's probably important to note that all of these numbers that we'll be talking about, at least a good chunk of them, connect to Masonry, the worldwide secret society, who claims that their highest degree is the 33rd. Masonry conveniently equaling 33. When you write out ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, the organization's full name, notice how you get 187 in that same reduction cipher. President Yoon is also synced up with this numerology to the moon landing. Notice how this same phrase also has ordinal gematria of 448. Well, if you measure from Yoon Suk-yeol's birthday, December 18th of 1960, to the date of the first ever moon landing, notice how this president was exactly 448 weeks old. NASA, an organization completely connected to Freemasonry. Just look at its founding date, for instance, 7/29 of the year 58. Freemasonry sums to 58. The year of its founding. And notice how using triangular numbers, the word Freemason equals 729. And NASA was founded on July 29th, or 729. President Yoon also made his declaration exactly 134 weeks into his presidency, which began back in May of 2022. Now, the number 134, relevant to the network he made his announcement on, YTN TV, sums to 1340 in Latin Gematria, the extended method that I teach on this channel, which I claim is most significant in the study. The president had accused his opposing party of engaging in anti-state activities, a phrase which also sums to 134. 134 is a number connected to the eclipse code. Notice how solar eclipse sums to 134 in the alphabetic order, matching Vesica Piscis, which is the shape that the intersecting regions of the moon and sun create at the start of a solar eclipse. In the reverse alphabetic order, both of these phrases also have gematria of 190. Well, when martial law ended in Korea, it was the result of a 190 to nothing vote by the Democratic side of the National Assembly. Martial law was enacted 27,190 days after the start of the Korean War. The nation's last president, Moon Jae-in, has this 190 gematria. And the number 19 is, of course, very important to the moon, as the moon's metonic cycle is a period of 19 years. And we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the metonic cycle in a little bit. But this number, 19, very clearly coded into this political ritual as well. So let's talk about how this connects to the two solar eclipses that I discussed at the top of this video. The 2027 eclipse, a very significant one that slices through the Middle East. So we'll be touching on this one here. But in the year 2035, notice how that year's total eclipse, totality slices through the Korean peninsula. This will be the next eclipse to have this property. So first, let's talk about why North Korea is connected to the number 227 and thus the 2027 eclipse. So earlier we mentioned the number pi, right? 3.14. If you have a Windows keyboard at home, Alt 227 will give you the pi symbol. And this is because 22 divided by 7 is the smallest equation you can use to get the first three digits of pi. 22 divided by 7 in the alphabetic order sums to 314, cementing this connection. South Korea's independence is celebrated annually on the 227th day of the year. And in the alphabetic order, North and South Korea sums to 227. Well, if you measure from the start of Yoon Suk-yeol's presidency to the date he declared martial law, you get 2 years, 207 days. In the ancient Hebrew language, where some people believe the practice of gematria and numbers with language all originated, in that language, the phrase for total eclipse has gematria of 227. This martial law was enacted 139 weeks exactly before the 2027 eclipse. 139, like the ordinal gematria of the Korean War. Now, if we instead measure from that declaration to the 2035 eclipse, which is over the Korean peninsula, we get exactly 10 years and 39 weeks, giving us another 139. This is ideal for the Korean War ritual that played out at the National Assembly. In the standard method of gematria, which is similar to Latin but uses the current 26-letter alphabet in a numeric structure identical to the ancient Hebrew and Greek charts, notice how martial law equals 902. And that's pretty fascinating considering this eclipse over Korea is on the date 9/2 or 902, September 2nd. Matching martial law. But there's more, of course. When South Korea first gained independence from Japanese rule, this happened during brown lunation number 280. Every new moon since the year 1923 has been numbered. And in 1945, in August, it was lunation 280. This martial law began exactly 2 years and 8 months before the 2027 eclipse. Well, in Hebrew gematria, the phrase for total solar eclipse has gematria of 280. But in the ordinal method of Hebrew gematria, it sums to 109. Well, December 3rd was exactly 10 years and 9 months before the 2035 eclipse. It was also 10 months and 9 days after Moon Jae-in's birthday. The current president, Yoon, was born on a date with 109 numerology. And consider how this all syncs up with the number 190 that we discussed earlier. In numerology, these numbers are identical. Martial law overturned with a 190-0 vote. So we mentioned how the number 19 is connected to the Metonic cycle, as this is a period of 19 solar years. But what you'll also notice is that this region of time syncs up perfectly with 235 synodic months or lunar phases. 235. Well, once again, the eclipse over Korea occurs in the year 2035. The phrase total solar eclipse has matching gematria with South Korean martial law, Korea, Seoul, South Korea, and more. Also worth noting that martial law order, which is what President Yoon issued, equals 235. So, now that we understand why this occurred on December 3rd into December 4th, I want to talk a little bit more about the South Korean presidency and how these characters were born by and installed by this strict numerical code. The Apollo 11 mission, where allegedly man first set foot on the lunar surface back in 1969, that mission occurred during brown lunation number 576. In the Sumerian method, Moon Jae-in equals 576. Moon, the last president of South Korea. By the way, this guy was the 12th president of South Korea. 12 happens to be the number of months or lunar orbits in a standard solar year. The Latin name for the moon, Luna, equals 12. A huge number with the moon landing was 666. This is the gematria of NASA's full name, fake moon landing, and Apollo. Well, Moon Jae-in was 66 months and 6 days old when NASA was founded in the year 1958, a date we reviewed earlier. Furthermore, Moon Jae-in was also 2012 days old when NASA was founded. Well, 2012 is the year that Neil Armstrong died, the astronaut who first walked on the moon. Neil Armstrong's full name equals 622, which matches Moon Jae-in's age when he walked on the moon, 6,022 days. This guy would go on to become the president on the 10th of May in 2017. Well, these digits are found in the gematria of Neil Armstrong's name. His full name is 105 and his common name is 217. The moon is an average of 238,000 miles from the Earth. President Yoon enacted martial law 238 days after the nation's last election. It was also 239 days after the Great American Total Solar Eclipse. And if you round up, this number here will give you 239. An important number to the moon is 272. And the reason for this is simple. If you divide the approximate width of the moon by the approximate width of the Earth, you get a dividend of 0.272 repeating. Moon Jae-in was born 2,720 days after Korean independence. And not only does South Korea sum to 272 with capital letters, but so does Korean War. Well, from the end of the Korean War to the birth of their current president, Yoon Suk-yeol, you get 2,702 days. And when President Yoon replaced President Moon, there was significant lunar numerology there as well. Notice how the moon equals 423 in standard English gematria. When President Yoon took over for President Moon, not only was he 22,423 days old, but he was also 4 months and 23 days after his last birthday. He was also 61 years old when he took office, and the 61st prime number is 283, matching the Latin gematria of the moon. Furthermore, his first day on the job had numerology of 57 and 21, which in the standard base methods is the gematria of moon, 57 ordinal, 21 reduction. 57 also the number of degrees in the moon's declination. I also found an intriguing connection to actor Sammo Hung, a guy who in the late 90s starred in a television series called Martial Law. An Asian man, I guess he's more Chinese than Korean, born in Hong Kong. But yeah, that alignment here is linked in my post, which you can find down in the description below if you want to see more. So I'm sure there's more numerology with this, and indeed, Cody did a video on this story yesterday as well, talking about pi, as this was a major part of the riddle. But on this channel, you see a lot about the Eclipse code, and it's hard for me to ignore events from South Korea, because like I said, the entire history of this peninsula is connected with the Eclipse code. That's about all I got to share. Just checking in on the chat here. And Start with Logic has some interesting notes for me. It's a strange criticism that people talk about the number of ciphers I use. I haven't added a cipher to this study in many, many years. And I'm very consistent with what the most significant ones are. And really, I have 778 videos now. And the presentation style in all of them is the same. So, no, we don't have to use ciphers that are made up in order to, quote, get these numbers. It's funny, a lot of people say, oh, you can do anything with numbers. And they just say that thing they heard as if it's a complete fact. However, you can't do everything with numbers this easily as you can when you understand which numbers are important to particular countries or astrological concepts, for instance. So, I don't mind seeing criticisms. I actually like it, because when I came into this study originally, I was highly skeptical of what I was seeing. And I had to prove to myself that what I was looking at wasn't merely coincidence. And it quickly came to be that this was the case. So, thanks for that. But, this channel is for people who wish to learn about numerology. And this might not make any sense to you, and that's fine. I don't exactly beg you to figure it out yourself. But these themes are highly consistent. Down in the description below, you'll see a video I made recently, also talking about this South Korean eclipse code, particularly the 2027 eclipse. Also, a video I made last year on the death of a Korean actor named Moonbin, which was also obviously connected to the moon. So if you take nothing from these videos other than the fact that the person sharing this information is completely crazy, then please switch this channel off and take solace in that. But again, if you want to learn about the world at large, the fascinating numbers that are consistent through all my videos that connect these methodologies, then you're free to do so as well. Again, all of my content that I've been making since early 2018 is free and accessible on my YouTube channel. I've also been uploading my work recently to Rumble as well. So do feel free to check that out. But once again, another major story on the world stage, all synced up with the moon, the sun, and the mystical language of Gematria. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.